If you've been using ERG mode and wonder why it feels harder, in this video I'm going to look at some data from some rides and attempt to answer this question, so stick around. Hey, what's up guys, it's Tariq here from smartbodytrainers.com. So ERG mode, some people love it and some people hate it. Personally, I like to use it for some workouts and leave it off for some other workouts. Sometimes it's just good to let the body do the work and see what the body can do. But before we get into all the details, if you are new to this channel, this is where I talk about smart trainers, Zwift, Trainer Road, and other cycling apps. I do in-depth reviews on smart trainers and other fitness gadgets. I am an Ironman athlete with a busy life and do the majority of my workouts indoor. So I put these products to a lot of use and testing, and I share my experience with you on this channel at smartbodytrainers.com. So if you are into these kind of things, consider subscribing, and if you have any questions or comment, just let me know down in the comment section below. So if you're not familiar with ERG mode, it is basically one way for smart trainers to put you through agony. So when your friend or coach send you a workout like this one, for example, with different intervals with a set power that you're supposed to hold for a set period of time, in the past, before smart trainers, you have to either adjust gear to change resistance or manually adjust resistance on your trainer or bike. However, with smart trainers, all you need to do is just keep pedaling, and the software will tell the smart trainer to keep you at your target watts, and the trainer will make small adjustment to resistance to keep you at your target watts. So as long as you are pedaling, there is nothing else you need to worry about except keeping your pedal smooth and just pedal and tolerate the pain until you are done with the workout. So if you're new to ERG mode or have been using ERG mode for a while and switch between ERG mode and slope mode or manual mode, you might have noticed that with ERG mode, it can feel the same workout can feel a little bit harder for the same effort. So assuming you're doing a 20-minute interval at 250 watts, some might say it feels easier to do 250 watts for 20 minutes outside or with ERG mode off than do the exact 250 watts with ERG mode on. So I wanted to do a little experiments with a sample of just me and take a look at the data, and hopefully we can see why this might be. So this past week I did a 3x15-minute workout, just your normal classic 3x15-minute intervals with 5-minute breaks in between each set. I broke the workout down as follow. The first interval at 230 watts done in the big ring with ERG mode on. The second interval at 230 watts with big ring, but with this time I turned ERG mode off. The third interval I turned ERG mode back on, but switched to the small ring in the front. And I picked 230 watts because I know I can hold 230 watts for a very long period of time, and just to eliminate fatigue from this little experiments. I kept the cadence around 85 to 90 RPM for all three intervals. I did the exact same workout twice using the same bike, but two different trainers. Okay, so here's the first workout. Let's take a look at the first interval. I'm going to remove the first 2 minutes here because I had problems with the trainer. It stopped responding, or it didn't adjust resistance when I entered the first interval. So I had to reset it. Basically, get off the bike, unplug the trainer, plug it back into power, and pair it and unpair it and pair it back again to Zwift. And that solved the issue. So let's take a look at 30-minute mark. So here I averaged 230 watts, so right on target. Now let's take a look at the power distribution for the 15 minutes to see how long I stayed at each zone. So I adjusted the zones here and made the green zone between 220 to 240 watts. So I have 20 watts range, so I can go up by 10 watts or down by 10 watts and stay in that zone. So that green zone is 220 to 240. Anything above 240 is the red zone, and anything below the 220 is gonna turn into blue. So in this interval, ERG mode was on and I was in the big ring. And as you see here, I spent 65% of the time in my target zone. That's 8 minutes and 30 seconds. 18% of the time was spent above my target and 16.5% under my target. The second interval, that was done with ERG mode off and in the big ring. So it was on manual mode or slope mode, and I averaged 229 watts, so right on target. 50.6% of the time was spent within my target range, so that's 7 minutes and 35 seconds out of that 15-minute interval. 21.7% of the time was spent over that range, so that's 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And this is interesting, 27.8% under the range. That's 4 minutes and 10 seconds. I still average the same 229 watts, but I achieve that or arrive there a little bit differently. I spent some times under and then I went above and I just kept going back and forth. So there was a little bit of a variance here. The cadence averaged around 88 RPM, so about 3 RPM here higher than the first one. So in this interval, I spent more time recovering or under my target zone and then going back up and coming back down. So a lot of variance, which is similar to when riding outdoors. My variability index here was still 1, so it's still considered a steady effort, but usually VI is not very relevant for anything below 20 minutes, so about 15 minutes is pretty close. So let's take a look at the third interval here. This one is really interesting. I am not usually a fan of doing intervals in the small ring, but I know this seems to be the preferred way and even recommended by some apps and some trainers. In the small rings, the trainer will be able to control resistance more precisely and you will get a smoother line. So let's take a look at the third interval and take a look at the graph here. So just as expected, 87.3% of the time was spent inside my target zone. That's over 30 minutes and 15 of that 15-minute interval. And only 5.4% was over my target zone and 7.2% was under my target zone. So as expected in the small rank, erg mode was much smoother. Not sure I would call it better. It was much smoother though. When you are in the small rank, you recruit different muscles and for me, it just feels off. It's like I'm on an old fluid trainer and just don't get that same inertia that you get in the big ring and doesn't feel as natural. Usually I never ride in the small ring when I'm outside unless I am climbing. Anyway, some interesting stuff here. Basically, when you are in erg mode, you are spending a lot of the time within the target zone and the trainer just locks you in there and you're not going to get that same variability as you do when you are not in erg mode or when you ride outside. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Let's take a look at this next trainer and the same thing. All three intervals were 15 minutes long and the same configurations. And let's take a look at the first interval. Erg mode was on and I was in the big ring 75% of the time inside the target zone. That's 11 minutes and 22 seconds. Only 8.8% over the target zone and 15% of the time was spent under the target zone. In the second interval, erg mode was off and I was in the big ring 62% or 9 minutes and 23 seconds within my target zone and 25% of the time was spent over my target zone and only about 1 minute and 47 seconds was spent under my target zone. So very close to the first interval when erg mode was on. I did spend more time paying attention to my power this time. I just kept my eye on the power meters, so that's probably why the numbers were very close. But let's take a look at the third interval. Erg mode was on and I was in the small ring here. 82% of the time was spent inside my target zone and 6% over the target zone and about 11% or 10.7% under my target zone. So regardless of trainer, in erg mode, you are stuck in that small zone. The trainer will lock you there, so you aren't getting that same variability as you do when you are free riding or when you turn erg mode off. And that's why it might feel a little bit harder. So we know we can get the same average power, but there are different ways you can get there. So is it better to do it in the small ring and get that nice smooth line and just be locked into your power target, or feel a bit more natural and get some variability? So I am curious to know what you think here. Do you prefer the big ring or small ring when you are in erg mode? And if you want to take a guess on which trainer you use for the first and second workout, let me know down in the comment section below. Maybe I will make another video on that one and dig into the data a bit more from both trainers. All right, that's all I have today. Thanks for watching and remember to subscribe and hit that like button, and we'll see you in the next video. Just a little clue for you. Both trainers are direct drive trainers and they each cost over $1,000. So just a little tip for you.